All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coach's Compass. Again, don't remember what episode it is because we just continue to roll. Just continue to bring on dope coaches from all across the world. Remember, hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we continue to have this thing grow and continue to bring on guests to help you guys learn. It's your boy, Coach Coop, reporting live from the US of A. Coach Jay cannot be with us tonight because unfortunately he is in Hungary and I'm back in the States. So that's 7 hours ahead. And we're going to let our boys sleep, right? But we got another dope guest with us tonight. We got Coach Thomas. Coach Thomas is going into his 5th season as a strength and conditioning assistant and return to play coordinator for the Carolina Panthers after joining the team in 2020. Coach Thomas came to the Panthers from Baylor, where he first worked as an applied performance assistant, working with athlete performance readiness technologies across all sports, while also working part-time with football 2017 to 2018. And then with head strength and conditioning coach Jeremy Scott as a football program's athletic performance coach in 2019. Prior to Baylor, Coach Thomas was a head Olympic strength and conditioning coach at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire from 2016 to 2017. He also spent 2 years as a strength and conditioning coach at College of Durocher St. Lambert, a prep school in Montreal, Canada. Coach Thomas earned his bachelor's degree in education at McGill University in Montreal in 2016, where he played basketball. He then earned his master's degree in exercise physiology from Baylor in 2018. So, Coach Thomas, thank you and welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's a long bio. I got to get that short and compare.
Yeah, man. I'm reading through it. I'm making sure I don't skip anything because it's a long, impressive bio.
It's a whole bunch of BS.
Man, what brought you into the field and what got you into strength and conditioning, and especially like return to play? Like why did you want to go down this?
So my dad is a downhill ski racing coach in New Hampshire now. They're from Canada originally, from Montreal, but they moved to New Hampshire before I was born. And my dad's a downhill ski racing coach, and he does strength and conditioning and rehab. And his mentor, it was his birthday like 2 days ago, his mentor's birthday. And I think he's like 89, this old Russian guy named Igor Burdenko. And so my dad learned a ton from this guy, and it's like movement training on the land and in the water. So we do deep water flotation. Also, I call him Uncle Igor. So like he's family. So, but from the time I was little, like when my dad first started learning, both my parents first started learning with him, my mom was pregnant and she was taking notes on her stomach as my dad did the exercises. So before I was born, this was all I was ever going to do. And I, like, as a little kid, girls from the Canadian or the U.S. ski team would tear their ACLs and they'd come live at our house and they'd do their rehab for a couple months before they'd go back and forth. So there was never going to be anything else, both strength and conditioning and rehab. I always tell this when this question comes up, but I have such a vivid memory. I was probably 8 years old and we're at the mall Christmas shopping, and there's people walking by and my dad's like, look at this person's foot. Like, you can see how the foot's caved in. Like, you know that it's causing problems up the chain. I was like, oh yeah, there was never going to be anything else. It's funny now too, because my dad still does that. And I like do the opposite. I turn it off. I'm out in public and I can't walk. Somebody runs by, I'm driving the car, like, don't look. Because it stresses me out more than it helps. So that was the start. I would say I'm pretty fortunate to work in football, but I never played a snap of football in my life. My dad broke his neck his last year playing, and he's totally fine. Oh yeah, he's a ski coach, but my mom was never going to let me play. So I played basketball. I played college basketball. And then I thought I wanted to be a basketball strength coach essentially. And when I had the opportunity to go down to Baylor, they were paying for I was teaching classes, so they paid for my school. It was awesome. I knew somebody who knew my boss here, Jeremy Scott, who was my boss at Baylor. And they put us in touch, and I was like, I'll go work football. Like, it's a free master's degree. So I work football for a free master's degree. That sounds fantastic. And immediately I realized, like, I think football is the sport where, especially in the U.S., strength and conditioning has the biggest effect. There's the most buy-in. So I was like, this sounds great. Here we go. I'm in.
The man was bred to do this, bro. Like, in the womb, like, mom taking notes, and like you're already learning strength and conditioning. Like, you ain't even know it, but you're just learning it, and you come out and like your dad's already teaching you things right away, and you've got Olympic athletes living with you. But like, you go on to play yourself. What was it like, kind of that transition from being an athlete to now going into the coaching side? Because like, I mean, all of us athletes, like we have a dream of going to the highest level, right? But then there's also that reality that hits you that like, okay, like what is like basketball doesn't work out. Same thing for like me, football doesn't work out. Like, what is the next thing that you do? And obviously, you had already kind of been set up to do strength and conditioning. What was it like switching over to being a coach? But then like now you're going into the college sector, and then like that whole world is crazy itself.
Crazy. So I started coaching. I also thought I wanted to be a basketball coach before a strength and conditioning coach. And I didn't enjoy my college experience a lot because of the coaching. It felt very transactional, and that's not what I enjoy. I like the player development. I like figuring out how to make people's skills better as well as them physically better. So before I even graduated from university, I started. So I went to Collège de Rocher Saint Lambert, which is a prep school. It's a French private school. My French is not good. My mom's a French teacher, and I was an asshole as a kid, and she would speak
My
to me
mom
in
speaks
French.
fluent French, and I don't even speak. I don't even know it either.
We're on the same page. So she would speak to me in French, and I would reply in English, which I thought was cool when I was 8. It wasn't cool when I'm 20 and I'm trying to talk to the point guard who doesn't speak any English, and I was like, "Uh-oh, we got to
Yo,
figure this one out." But so I did both strength and conditioning and basketball for 2 years, my last 2 years of undergrad, and I realized I liked the strength and conditioning better, and I liked that the strength and conditioning coach helps every single player and doesn't dictate the playing time. So no matter what, you are having a positive effect. So I think that was probably the thing that made me want to like really dive into it, and because I had the background, it was natural.
yeah. So what was that? And then
Yeah.
from like going from college to, the pro level, that's a whole different jump. How was that? How was that for you? And then what do you see some of the like the biggest differences from college to pro?
So my always thought that I wanted to work in the pros. My personality is, I think, more suited to this level. I'm not the rah rah yeller, hold them accountable. Yeah, you got to do the exercise right, but I don't really care. I care about maximizing the performance, right? I want to figure out the absolute best way to do it. And my belief is that if I am putting the athlete, like our staff, we are doing the absolute best we can, putting the athlete in the position to succeed, they're automatically going to be bought in. We don't need, or I don't need to provide a motivational speech to get this guy to train hard, because especially at this level, he's a pro and he wants to make as much money as possible and win football games, and I want to win football games. So together we have the exact same goal. We both succeed. My goal is to give you the absolute best training program, best coaching, so that we both have that. And I think it is well suited in this league. I was really lucky when we were at Baylor. Our middle linebacker, his father had been in the NFL for 25 years as a strength coach, a gentleman named Kent Johnston, and he's one of the nicest men on the planet. He's from Mejia, Texas. He's known around the NFL as Coach Bud because he calls everybody Bud, and he really took me under his wing, and he did return to play for us at Baylor. He had done it for a long time in the NFL, so he came in and did return to play, and I just said, "Oh, this is such a great opportunity to learn." Um, he's also really, really good friends with Dan Paff, who's from 2 hours south of Baylor. So Dan Paff would come up every couple weeks. He still comes and visits us all the time here. We bring him in, and I just saw, like, one, he was such a nice man and looked out for me, and I wanted to learn as much as possible. So I'd be over at his house. You know, I'm I was 2,000 miles away from New Hampshire, but then he became my surrogate dad of doing the exact same things where I could learn as much as possible.
What
We're
is
super lucky here too. Sorry, we're super
no,
lucky
no, go
here
ahead.
too in Carolina. Um, the our head of health and wellness is a gentleman named Andrew Altoff. He was our sports scientist at Baylor. We all came with Coach Rule and have somehow survived all these coaching changes.
Yeah.
It's I don't know how it's happened. It's definitely luck. It's definitely doing the best we can to take care of the players, and people can tell, and it pays off. I hope. That's what I believe it is. You want to believe you have some control of your destiny, so that's what I choose to believe it is. But he does a great job with all of us. My boss, Jeremy Scott, does a great job. Everybody really wants to develop, so we bring tons of people in throughout the course of the year, and we have for the last 5 years that we've been here and before. There's always so many people coming in to give you a chance to learn and to be mentored by and try to know what's going on.
I mean, it's cool that like NFL, or I mean, at least the Panthers, or see that you guys are also still trying to learn, and that you guys, I mean, you're at the NFL, so everybody automatically assumes you guys are the best of the best. But in this coaching field, like everybody still wants to learn and still wants to get better at their craft. But for a lot of our listeners out there, from the European side that don't essentially know what return to play is, what is the return to play, coordinator do, and then what is an average day like for you?
Return to play is the gap between rehab and getting on the field. I think it's, especially in the National Football League, it's super valuable because you're playing 18 games and it's so violent, right? So everybody gets hurt. So you always are having, we're always having guys we're working with, whether it's to get them ready for the next week or to get them ready in 3 weeks or to get them ready in 10 weeks. Because you could have someone that has a grade 3 hamstring rupture, and in some sport, in college football, they're done for the year. In some sports, they're done for the year. In the NFL, they can still play half the season. So it makes it very valuable. So what I do, we have 3 great PTs on staff and then 4 athletic trainers, I think. So I work really closely with them. We meet almost daily with our sports science staff. Our director of sports science is a guy named Ryan Bellerose, and he and I are really good friends. We're both from New Hampshire, so it's great. We have a ton in common, and we all meet together on a daily basis and come up with a plan for whoever the injured guys are, and we're working with them essentially from the second they're off the table and able to start moving. We have them doing as much as possible that is safe to get them back playing.
And what is like, because I mean, a lot of people don't know what the hours are like also for a return to play specialist. Because, like, I mean, obviously everybody's seen Hard Knocks, right? They see what like the players go through, but on the coaching side, how much time are you spending in the building and like being there on a daily, but especially,
All of it.
you get to training camp, you get to, the season starts, life's over.
Yeah, it's in 2 days on Friday. The rookies report on Friday. It's the end. Summer's done. So weekly, daily, we always joke with the guys because they'll show up and be like, "Oh, you're here." Yeah, when you show up, we're here, and when you leave, you're here. So why are you shocked that I'm here at other times? Especially during training camp, we work a lot. Like it's probably 5:30 to 6:37 every night. During training camp, it'll go till 7 because I started talking about my background with Dr. Burdenko and using the pool. So during training camp, we go to the pool any night that they have practice the next day. We'll go give the guys, whoever wants can come and use the pool and do their recovery for 20, 30 minutes. So that's done at 6:45, whatever, 7. So I'll be there from 5:30 in the morning until I go home at 7 for training camp. Once the season starts, it's not quite as much. You still are working 7 days a week, except for the 2 days for the bye week. 1 day if you got Thursday night football. Besides that, you're working every day. They're long days, but it's way better than in college. In college, you're working long days you get 2 weeks off maybe. Whereas the NFL, we're really lucky with the off seasons. And in college, the kids have school in the middle of the day. So strength coaches are there in the morning and they're there when they come back, but there's a 6-hour block where you're sometimes guarding your desk, sometimes able to do other things. Where we're lucky in the NFL that they're there, they go to work at 8 and the guys go home by 4 or 5. So even if they're staying after and it's not even close to as bad as it could be.
Right. So then, I mean, getting to this level, what do you think has, put you yourself in an area that's helped you achieve success? Like, what are you doing, I guess, differently than other coaches out there, or maybe even it's the same, that has helped you, get to this level and kind of be, at the NFL standing?
Number one, I got lucky. Like I think that's, who you meet, who you know. Meeting Coach Johnston at Baylor, that and I went to a school that was paying for my grad school, and it just so happened that 3 years later, that head football coach gets a job in the NFL, and you get brought along. Like there's definitely luck involved. Now, again, you want to believe you have control of your own destiny. So they didn't take everybody from our staff, right? So I did some things right along the way to be able to come. The number one thing, I think I try to be super positive every day. Every single person I interact with, I want, even if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to lie through my teeth so that, because nobody cares. Like when someone
Right.
asks you how you're doing or that interaction, they don't care. But if you say that you're in such a good mood, it brightens their day too. So I do think that stuff matters. And then I'm a learner. My passion in the field, trying to know as much as possible and trying to solve all of the puzzles. So every car ride is a podcast or an audiobook. Uh, my my pre-bed light reading is I'm rereading Super Training right now on my Kindle. So it's like I'm fascinated by trying to solve the puzzle of the human body, and I'm taking courses. I'm a Sportsmith Premium junkie. So all of those things. I mean, eventually you start to learn more, and I've really noticed that the more you learn, then the more it's easier to learn, right? You make these connections. And so the first time I read Super Training, I had no idea what the hell was going on. I was reading my dad's copy of it, and I'm reading his notes on the side as I'm reading it. And I'm like, I don't know what this means. And I'm looking at his notes, and I'm like, I don't know if he knew what this meant either. And now I'm reading it, and I understand the vocabulary, and I know the connections. And in some cases, I'm reading, I'm like, oh, science, like modern physiology has actually proved this wrong, but I know why the applied version still works. So I'm enjoying it exponentially more at 32 than I did at 25. So I think that's a plus too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because the vocab can be hard, you know, and especially like for the newer guys getting started in it. Like, it's a lot of big fucking words.
It's a
Like,
lot of words and it's a lot of confusing concepts. I was talking to my boss, Coach Scott, the other day about it, and I was like, man, if everybody could understand super training, you would have it would be so much better in strength and conditioning actually, like or science and practice by Rex Dorsey, or transfer of training by Bondarchuk, whatever your classic of choices, right? If it was if it was easy to understand, we'd have a field that understood, and it's just not like that, right? And they're not enjoyable to read. I guess that's the magic in continuing to read it. So I read it, I'm like, man, this is so good, this makes so much sense. And I wish I knew this 7 years ago when I read it the first time, but I had no idea what the hell I was reading.
yeah, well, maybe it wasn't made for you to make sense at 7 years ago. Maybe like you had to read it then and like experience some things and kind of go through it. Then like go back and reread it and be like, shit, like this is what they were talking about. Like I was
You're
supposed
you're
to, you know what I mean?
you're definitely right, because if you there's like a strength deficit that Tim Cannon just wrote. Well, it's like page 5 or page 10 of Super Training. They're talking about strength deficit. And Tim Cannon took that concept and expanded on it. Wait, wrote a whole book about it. So, but I'm like, oh, the first time I read this, that word wouldn't even have triggered a thought because Tim Cannon hadn't written the book yet.
Right.
And now, to your point, then you read it again and you pay more attention to certain things, and they probably are more valuable because of all the other learning.
And you say like you're continuously trying to learn, you're continuously trying to better your craft. Who and you've mentioned some coaches already. Who are some coaches in the strength and conditioning field, sports performance field that you're kind of looking up to and kind of continuing to learn from, like some of those top people that like you yourself are kind of like, hey, I need to listen to this person, or I need to read their book, or I need to see what they're doing for their training to kind of help you with what you're doing yourself.
Um, I think that's an important question, because you are only as good as the people that you learn from. And in some cases, it's luck who your mentors are. People, if you were unfortunate to have a bad mentor, then and your whole background is wrong, it's really tough to change your mind. I would say I'm a big Boo Schexnayder fan. I think Boo is one of the smartest people in the field. I think he applies really confusing science very easily. Like he makes it digestible. Dan Paff, absolutely. His ability to watch movement is second to none. He watches people run on the other side of track and says, oh, T3's out. And then Cairo looks at him and goes, oh, wow, T3 was out. It's unbelievable how that works. Coach Johnston, Kent Johnston, taught me a ton. Rob Panarello is a physical therapist from New York, and he's phenomenal. He's done tons with ACLs, and he's really big on using the Olympic lifts in rehab for ACLs. He he was my boss for the last 2 years. Johnny Parker and Al Miller wrote a book called The System, which is Russian volume allocation to training, undulating periodization. And that's how we program with the Panthers. It's how we programmed at Baylor. So every single week, every single exercise has a specific percentage of a total volume. And if you tell me, hey, it's 1,000 rep month and it's the 32% week and it's squat day, I'll tell you it's 6x6. And I know that that's because you can't do more than 36 reps. And that's things that they learned from their trips to Bulgaria, to Russia. And that's been really influential for me. Other people I learn a lot from. I've recently been listening to a ton of Rolf Ullman and Randy Huntington. That's been fascinating to me with using Kaisers, using Kennedy. Jonas Dodu in England. I'm a huge fan of Jonas's. I think that he's taken Coach Pass running and made it really easy to see and apply for the coaching eye. And then your Dan Mendegucha in Spain. He's probably the world's biggest hamstring expert, foremost hamstring expert. And we brought him in a year and a half ago. And it's absolutely changed how we've done hamstring rehabs ever since, for the better. We changed our cadence of training. We changed our density, our frequency of work. And our players come back way stronger. They come back running faster. It's actually amazing, some of the differences that happen from bringing him in. And then, of course, Dr. Burdenko, my dad, that's the basis. They talk about the importance of controlling the pelvis. So in Dr. Burdenko's method, in his system, in order of importance by quality, balance is number one, coordination is number two, then balance, coordination, endurance, flexibility, speed, strength. Yeah, that's the order, I believe. Of course, it doesn't matter. But balance is number one, and balance doesn't mean like standing on one leg on a Bosu ball or standing on one leg on a foam pad. Balance is control front to back, it's symmetry side to side, and it is controlling the pelvis. So that's when I'm moving, I'm not stuck in anterior pelvic tilt. And like if you see the guys that are super extended, they can't change direction. It's like a top that's uneven. You try to spin the top that's uneven, it's not going to spin. So that was from the time I was little. It was always like, where is the pelvis? Where is the pelvis? Is it are the hips under the shoulders? Am I stacked, rib cage on top of pelvis, right? Then you take PRI, DNS courses, and they talk about pressurizing and keeping neutral posture. And I'm like, oh, this is saying the same thing that my dad and Uncle Igor were saying, but it's using different words. And then your Dan has all this hamstring research, and it's anterior pelvic tilt increases the risk of hamstring strain. It's the number one factor. And when you have one side of your pelvis is more anteriorly rotated, it's extra strain on that hamstring, extra stretch. The opposite hip flexor becomes tighter. You need to make sure that opposite hip flexor stays loose. That's like 30 millimeters of strain, all these things. And I'm reading it and I'm listening, I'm like, well, when I was 8 years old, what I was told was correct. So that's why I say it's really important who your mentors were, because if you were wrong from the beginning, if someone told me I should walk around with this big sway anterior tilt, then I'd be pretty screwed now when I'm trying to fix somebody's hamstring pull.
Yeah.
It's instead all of the exercises, all of the things I learned. I'm like, oh, I see where these fit. Now I'm just fitting them into our systems here.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're learning from. I mean, you name some guys out there that are some top dogs in the game, like from all spectrums of this coaching world. But on top of that, like, where do you see yourself going with it all? Like, what's the goals? What's some of the dreams? I mean, obviously, you're living out a dream right now, working in the NFL. But like, where do you see yourself, going and being in this coaching realm? Like, you name some big names. Like, is that a goal? Like, to be one of those big names, or what?
I'm not totally sure. When I was at Baylor, I really wanted to work in the NFL. That was always my goal. And I was very fortunate to be able to do that. Then really wanted to, because I love the return to play side. So I feel really fortunate that I get to do both the return to play and the strengthening. And I definitely would have said like director of return to play coordinator would have been in the NFL. Like that would have been 1A. And now I'm doing that at 32. I'm really so lucky, so fortunate. I probably down the road would love to be something like a high performance director. maybe a head strength and conditioning coach. I think that the conversations affecting practice planning, the conversations with the football coaches about managing loads and properly dosing loads, it doesn't mean less. It just means, knowing when to supply the stressor and when to pull back, and playing with the volumes, the intensities, the densities, the frequency, all of those things that make up period. I think that those are the conversations that really cause teams to win. And I think that, one, it's a really fun puzzle. How do you make your team as good as possible? That's really, really fun puzzle. How do you improve skill learning and all these things? And I think that's probably the position that I eventually can be in that can have that type of effect. I do really like presenting. I do really like speaking and talking about training. So to your other question, being the big name is not important, but I do enjoy, because I enjoy learning so much, and I was a teacher in undergrad and I taught classes in my grad degree. Like, I do enjoy the teaching side of it. And I think that it's so important that strength coaches know the technical X's and O's of strength and conditioning. Obviously, you're biased to what you like and what you do. So, yeah, I'm biased. I told you I'm a learner, and now I tell you I like teaching it, of course. But yeah, so that's where I'm currently at this point.
Yeah. And now if you look back at, 15, 16-year-old Coach Thomas, all right, and now at 32, what would you look back and tell him now?
Keep the training, keep jumping. I was playing basketball. I'm trying to dunk. I jump better now than I did then. I'd say go trap bar deadlift. That's what I would have said. It's funny because I wouldn't have done anything differently in the journey to end up where I am. I feel so fortunate that I'm able to say that. I wouldn't have made any other decisions differently. I think the things that go wrong are beneficial and the things that go well are beneficial. So that's for sure. I do laugh. I read things and I'm like, oh, with the new research, with all these things, I would have loved to train differently. I think everybody thinks that way. There's a book called How We Learn to Move by Rob Gray that I think is the absolute number one skill training, skill development book. It was a page turner for me. I couldn't put it down. And then he also wrote another book called Optimizing Human Movement. And so he was a researcher, a motor learning, motor control researcher at Arizona State, and now he works for the Red Sox in skill development. I'm reading How We Learn to Move, and I was just like, man, some of the drills my dad and I did playing basketball were unbelievable. Like, we did all this jumping and turning and similar stuff you see in KD doing with his trainer. We did all of that stuff when I was 17 years old, and I could shoot the ball like crazy. And I was like, well, okay, that's sweet. Now there's 5 other things I wish I did, and I wish I made it look more like the sport and all. Like, that's really the only difference. That's the only thing I would do differently, though. I think we're all like that, though. You would go back and do things differently too.
100%. Now there's like feeling like the injuries that I've had and everything like that. Just even like talking to somebody like you, like a return to play specialist. Like I would venture into like learning more about like the whys behind we did certain things and like how I could better my body, not only just for like getting back to playing, but like how is this going to affect me long term? Like asking more questions. I was never good at it. I was just like, hey, whatever coach said, like that's what I'm going to do. And not that that's ever wrong. I was just like, I come from the old school way, and I come from 2 military parents. You know what I mean? That always told me like, hey, whatever your coach says, just get it done, and right, you'll worry about the rest later. If you need more, just like research it yourself. But you know, like I would do more research. I would ask more questions and learn the things that I needed to learn. So I'm not sitting here at 32 and waking up with back pain and trying to figure out, all right, now like, oh shit, there probably was like I probably didn't need to back squat 500 pounds because it would have, like, if I would have done 400, it would have done the same effect to me of how I was going to play. Like it was all about how I was going to play on the field. Like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things I would go back and do for sure to change the outcome now. But hey, at 32, like at least we're still learning. At least we're still open to figuring things out.
You're not right. And at 50, we're going to say the exact same thing about right now.
We're gonna look back at this podcast and be like, "Oh, what the hell were we talking about then?
We were
Like,
idiots.
we ain't know nothing."
Exactly.
So if also like what's one question that you would love, for us to ask, but also if you thought about yourself, if you were to ask like one of those mentors or one of the coaches that you really look up to, what's one question you would want to ask them?
No clue. The first one is more, I always wondered, do they ever stop having imposter syndrome? Like, does Dan Path have imposter syndrome? Because one, I think it's a good thing. right? Because then you're not comfortable. I think that if you believe you know the most, then why would you keep learning? So I assume that he has the urge to keep learning, but I wonder if you get to a point where you're more confident and that's actually beneficial. Like I assume it is too. And I'm not saying that I question everything I say, but there's certain things I say, I wonder if that's right or not. Or I also wonder, I'm always I don't think anybody has this answer yet, but like, I don't know how we know we're right, especially in training with the body, right? Because everybody says like, oh, there's 50 ways to skin a cat. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But like, really, there probably isn't. There probably is one best way. When you go to the veterinarian can heal 17, 20 different animals. We're all the same animal. It shouldn't be that confusing. There probably should be one best way to do it, or at least one best way to do. I'm not saying every person's exactly the same, so people need different things, but like there's probably systems that are the best to make the human body. I don't know how we find out. I don't know how we find out that one of those is right.
Hey, I don't know how we.
Like,
that's a good one.
I think that the East Germans and the Russians were probably on top, were the closest to figuring it out because they had the biggest population to test and they had the most control over the population of their athletes. Honestly, China might be kind of close. We have no idea what they're doing in China right now.
But, no, none at all.
But there's a super heavyweight Olympic weightlifter who never maxes out because she still wins by so much, and they don't want her to get hurt so she never maxes out. But she still is winning by like 40 kilos on it every lift. So clearly they're doing now. They have a huge population, but clearly they're doing something right.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. I like that. Figuring out what is like. Is there one? What is the best program? Like, what is the best structure?
What is the way to do it? Because it's tough, and I think it's really tough in the U.S. too because we have such a diverse population that it makes us good at sports. Yep. So, but we don't know if it's because we're doing a good job. Are we preparing them better than other places? Are we coaching them better? Probably not, or maybe equally. But LeBron James and Steph Curry are going to go beat Serbia by 40 today, regardless, because they're LeBron James and Steph Curry.
Right. Like, did we have a play in that? Like, did their coaches like
they have the best guys in the U.S. working with them. I'm sure they do a great job. I'm not taking a shot at anybody by any means, but
right, no. But like,
those dudes were born, and somebody said you are going to be unbelievable. And Steph Curry's dad taught him how to shoot when he was 13 months old, and every shot goes in. And we make sure he doesn't sprain his ankles anymore. Fantastic.
No, that is true. I'm like thinking about it. Like, do we play? Like, how much of a role did we play? You know, and like, yeah. Especially here in America, like you said, it's a diverse
question. We like
diverse country, but
if anybody asks, we play a really good role, and they should keep paying us.
Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, guys, so we can keep getting our paychecks.
Exactly.
But, Coach, before we get out of here, we got our 60-second round, right? It's 10 questions, 1-word answers, 60 seconds on the clock. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right, 60 seconds on the clock. First question: favorite post-workout snack?
EO3 protein drink.
Favorite sport?
Basketball.
Dream vacation spot?
Val Thorens, France. Skiing. Yeah.
Guilty pleasure food?
I'm the worst for this. Ice cream. I love ice cream.
Best concert you ever been to?
Above and Beyond.
Favorite movie genre?
Comedy.
Best gym you've ever been to?
Best gym? No, this is not a lightning round. Maybe the UFC Performance Institute suite.
Dream car?
Porsche 911 GT.
Would you rather be in an octagon with a gorilla, a tiger, or a bear?
A bear.
And that is it, Coach.
You're losing no matter what.
It's all a lose. But we appreciate you being here with us tonight, man. Thank you for so much of your time. And thank you for the knowledge that you came on and dropped, for so many of our listeners, on the European side and here in America too. So thank you, man. And we appreciate it.
Always a great time.
Yeah. Always. And we're out.